From all across Southern Ontario. It's great to have you here on this important weekend. There's a lot of orange as we get ready for Monday, you know, with pumpkins and all. It makes me wonder whether Halloween is an NDP conspiracy. What do you think? Well, I've really come to talk about what took place in Thornhill and matters related to that. So I want to begin by saying that we've got nothing to hide here. My life is an open book, or should I say an open newspaper. I've been a spokesperson and writer for the Radical Socialist Press for 38 years. For 43 years, I've been a member of the New Democratic Party, a delegate to federal and Ontario NDP conventions, ONDY president at one time, provincial council member, and on. So, I put it to you, simple question. Do you think there's anyone in the Ontario NDP leadership unfamiliar with my political views? So it was on that basis that I accepted the invitation of Thornhill NDP executive members to seek the nomination to be their candidate in the Ontario election that recently took place. I filled out a 20-page candidate information disclosure form. And I have a copy of that form here if anybody would like to look at it. I identified all my political associations and the websites where all the articles that I've written for the past 15, 20 years may easily be found. And I submitted this to the provincial office, to the staff, to the Ontario Provincial Secretary. I met with Diane Lawson at her request on the morning of... Darlene Lawson. Getting my D's mixed up. Thank you. I met with Darlene in her office on August the 10th at her request. She had two questions for me. Palestine and public funding of Catholic schools. What would be my response if the media or any other candidate, member of the audience asked me about these two matters? And I said, well, look, you know, to the best of my knowledge, this is an Ontario provincial election into which we are heading. So there's not going to be much discussion of foreign policy. My views on that subject are well known and can be found online quite easily, and I'll entertain discussion of that issue after the election. And on the subject of public funding of Catholic schools, I will be reflecting and campaigning for the party's political position. The debate on that subject occurs inside the party and at convention and leading up to convention. And the real issue, as a secondary school teacher and someone concerned about education, as are all of you, I'm sure, the real issue in Ontario is the underfunding of all public education and the need for a much more progressive tax system to correct the drastic underfunding of our schools at all levels. She was quite satisfied with those responses. She gave me her stamp of approval. In fact, she led me by the elbow out of her office and began to introduce me to all the staff in the building as the next candidate in Thornhill for the New Democratic Party. On September the 1st, I won the nomination at Thornhill in a contested election. There were nearly 70 people in attendance, and all seemed well and good. We were beginning to talk about the design of the campaign the lawn signs and the literature that we would soon get published and distributed widely. On the evening of September the 2nd, I received a telephone call. It was Darlene Lawson, and she said she had concerns. I said, pray tell, what are your concerns? She had two concerns. One is an article that I wrote for the July edition of Socialist Action newspaper. Number two is, she said, a dispute that I have with the leadership of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, a dispute which I note started 9 years ago. The article, which you can find in that back issue of the Socialist Press, is a semi-humorous piece in tone. It's a rather mild criticism of the Ontario leader and the party platform. I believe I used the word aspartame to describe the effect of party policies on the capitalist economic crisis. As you may know, aspartame is an artificial sweetener. Other journalists including Robin Sears, former federal campaign director of the NDP, used much stronger language in deriding the Ontario election platform and the leader in an article he wrote in the Toronto Star, published just before the election. In my role as a substitute teacher union organizer and negotiator, I stand up for my members. And we are the victims of an anti-democratic, elitist teacher bureaucracy which gave away 20 years of collective bargaining gains. But this is a matter of internal concern to members of our teachers' union. It has nothing to do with the public electoral process. It has nothing to do with the NDP nomination process. I've broken no Canadian laws, nor have I violated any rules of my profession or its governing bodies. Back to the newspaper article. It was, and I emphasize and ask you to note, the article was written 2 months before the Thornhill nomination meeting, over 2 months before the writ was dropped for the Ontario election, which occurred on October 6th. So, what changed between August 10th, when I met with Darlene in her office, and September 3rd, when they rescinded my nomination? Well, only one thing had happened. Only one thing had changed. I won the nomination. That's it. Now, I understand that NDP candidates are members of a team, and the team should advance the same policies. And hopefully these are policies adopted at convention, not cooked up in the back room by some party pollsters. So, the questions that I have coming out of this situation I described are these. Are party members allowed to think for themselves and to express their views? Is a member who'd like to be a candidate forbidden to criticize party policies and practices? For how long prior to an election campaign must one be silent? Is 1 month enough? 2 months? 5 months? 6 months? For how long does one have to refrain from public comment? Does this restriction, this enforced silence, unless it is an expression of complete agreement with the prevailing view with the party leadership, does this restriction apply only or mainly to left-wing party members? Because it doesn't seem to apply to advocates of, for example, merger with the Liberal Party. It doesn't seem to apply to proponents of NDP disengagement with the labor movement in this country. What degree of criticism is permissible? Are there in fact 2 categories of NDP membership? Category 1 can be described as those who give money, whose critical views are ignored, and who are not welcome as candidates despite having grassroots support. And then there's category 2, those who toe the line or who choose to remain silent 365 days a year, year in, year out, unless it is, of course, to endorse the positions of the leader, whether they've been adopted at a convention or not. Perhaps we should be asking some other questions. Maybe these are the wrong questions to ask. Perhaps we should be asking this. Whose party is this?
Parties?
How much power should central party officials have to overturn local riding and youth section decisions? How much transparency and accountability is lacking? Does the New Democratic Party live up to its middle name? Diana and I are not the only victims of arbitrary and undemocratic actions by the officials of the party. Something similar happened in Scarborough Agincourt, I understand. And in Nova Scotia, Tamara Lawrence, a candidate for the federal NDP in 2008, and a leader of the Halifax Peace Coalition, claims that party officials blocked her from seeking the nomination in 2011 because she campaigned against new warship construction contracts. So, no doubt, there are many others who have been blocked or subverted in this way. So then, the next question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to simply grin and bear it? Are we going to, well, he won't be grinning and bear it. Are we going to quit walk away from the only mass labor-based political party in North America and just complain to a small circle of friends? Or are we going to fight back? Are we going to say the NDP is a working class party with socialist roots? It does not belong to Darlene Lawson. It does not belong to Sandra Clifford. It does not belong to the labor bureaucracy. It does not belong to the Lewis family. It belongs to working people. It belongs to unionists. It belongs to youth. It belongs to women, seniors, environmentalists. It belongs to socialists and all the members of the party. It's our party, and we will fight to make it democratic. We will take this fight to Provincial Council on November the 19th and the NDP convention in April 2012. Can we do it?
Yes.
Darn right we can, and that's exactly what we're going to do.